In 2117, humanity has ignored nature's signals for years, for its own benefit, making Earth uninhabitable. Soon, scientists discover a new planet suitable for human habitation, and a group of researchers sets out to explore it. Sometime later, the Tantalus 2 mission is sent to Iridan to colonize the planet. However, shortly afterward, Kaitan of the mission is interrogated at a military base on Mars. The interrogations last for hours, and it's completely unclear what the officer is trying to achieve. After all, the woman is forced to repeatedly tell the same story. The commander awakens near a burning spaceship. Several crew members try to revive her. Dan, the mission's head of security, assures her that the ship crashed during landing. Only 9 people remain alive. The rest either died immediately or are burning out in cryogenic chambers. In the present, the officer reminds the commander that she commanded 250 people, and it was her fault that they all died. He forces her to begin the story again from the beginning. The commander begins again. Tantalus 2 was on a mission. The ship was on schedule and arriving at the planet on time. Approaching the planet, the crew heard a greeting from the first group of colonists who were eagerly awaiting reinforcements. All ship systems were functioning normally. Life support was functional, and there was ample fuel. The pilots could already survey the planet, ready to become a new home for humanity, and the 200 frozen passengers would be awakened automatically. The pilots discuss how the first group had already built homes for the new arrivals, awaiting their new residents, and how they themselves would be delighted to receive new specialties. The commander admits that she intends to retire from flying and finally start a real family. One of the pilots explains that his daughter already lives on Iridan, and he is eager to see her. Suddenly, the pilots notice a strong meteor shower and begin arguing about how to avoid it. Then a large meteorite strikes the hull. The hull is damaged, and the ship begins to lose power. The captain then awakens on Earth, not far from the burning ship. The survivors must find the first colonists, but the radio broke during the crash landing, and they don't know how far their central base is. The survivors collect the bodies of their fallen colleagues and place them in a bag, offering to hold a funeral. Meanwhile, a pair of radio technicians, John and Carrie, go to the wreckage of the ship to try to find the transmitter and find the repairman, Elik. Meanwhile, the captain finds the pilot, with whom she develops a romantic relationship. The man is deeply distressed by what happened, and she tries to reassure him, saying they've been tracked since they entered the system, so help is sure to come. In the present, the woman recalls how she organized the rescue effort, but the ship was ablaze, and finding the survivors was impossible. However, there was good news. The water tanks were undamaged, and Eileen found a surviving transmitter that needed to be pulled from under the struts. Despite the captain's cries to abandon the ship, the technicians scrambled into the wreckage, but Carrie slipped and fell directly onto a protruding spike, which pierced the unfortunate girl through and through. A doctor arrived and managed to remove her, but the wound was serious and the girl required proper surgery. However, the doctor didn't have the necessary instruments. Meanwhile, others discuss the ship's engine, which continues to operate despite the emergency landing. Since it turns out it can't be turned off at all, being near it without protection is very dangerous. The doctor reminds them that they first need to save the main reason the ship went to Iridan, the preservation of the DNA of all life on Earth, which means the group will have to leave the crash site. Dan is reluctant to carry the extra load, but the captain reminds them that this is Earth in a bottle and the hope for the survival of their entire species. In the present, the officer summarizes the captain's actions. She commanded with her heart, not her head, but the woman reminds her that she was thinking about safety. She recalls the first night on Jordan, when John was forced to admit that the transmitter he found wasn't working. He will, however, try to pick up a signal from the local base to determine their destination. While waiting for the signal, John and Elik look at the starry sky, realizing that this planet is beautiful, and she expresses hope that they survive, since a Chinese mission, already legendary, has already landed here. Suddenly, strange cries of an unknown animal are heard from the night forest. No one knows who or what it is, or what the threat is, but everyone crosses their fingers and hopes for the best. In the morning, Carrie comes to, and immediately John picks up some kind of signal. Unclear sounds are heard through the static, which the group interprets as the colonist station attempting to contact them. and they decide to set out. After burying the dead, the group sets off. Carrie is carried on slings, which delays the others. Furthermore, the doctor notices that the girl is getting worse. The radio technicians discuss their family matters and worry that their families will worry. But on the other hand, if they're late, they'll be searched for, and that's necessary since the survivors have almost no food. Meanwhile, the doctor informs the commander that a blood transfusion could help Carrie, and the commander orders a halt. One of the pilots, seizing the opportunity, goes to look for water and soon finds a small pond. Meanwhile, the commander is asking the survivors about Carrie's blood type. Dan, having learned the purpose, says it won't work. He's very unhappy that they're wasting time because of the wounded woman and suggests getting rid of her, which shocks the captain. The man is certain she's doing a poor job, and this will lead to everyone's death. John reassures the commander, assuring them that they support her and says there were no more messages. In the present, the officer forgives the captain for telling him about Dan, and the woman admits that his assertiveness frightened her. Besides, he wanted to kill Carrie. The situation improved somewhat when they found potable water, but then something happened that didn't make sense. On Iridan, a group of survivors continued on their way, but they suddenly saw people they initially mistook for a rescue team. But as they got closer, the people saw their colleagues buried. The zombies attacked the people, and drama ensued. Dan shot the living dead, after which the people decided to burn the remains. The health officer, Mrs. Scott, suggests pondering the strangeness of the situation. The colonists have never mentioned predators or seen zombies, although they too have lost their lives. As evening falls, the captain talks to the pilot, worried that no one is looking for them yet and speculating that something might have happened to the colonists, but he reassures her. At the doctor's request, the group stops for the night, wanting to examine Carrie. Scott immediately suggests trying some local apple-like fruits, but the doctor forbids it. They while away the night discussing zombie attacks. When Carrie gets worse, screams are heard in the distance, but no one is visible. Joe suggests hiding among the trees, and the group heads for the forest where they intend to wait until morning. Dan and his men remain on duty while the others rest. The security chief explains that his wife refused to fly, and now he doesn't trust the captain. In the present, the captain explains that they never found out whose screams they heard on Iridan. But back then, they waited until morning and continued on. Suddenly, John picks up a signal, and while everyone is discussing it, the quietly deceased Carrie rises from her stretcher and attacks one of the men. Ben kills her, but the astronaut dies. The doctor performs an autopsy on Carrie and finds a parasite in her brain, which is apparently responsible for people turning into zombies. However, they can't control the living, so they attack the long dead. But why didn't the settlers see this? After all, they've lived on Iridan for many years. In the morning, the people burn the dead. John announces that Carrie's attack damaged the transmitter, and now the signal is lost. Denji talks about the deceased, who was a real soldier. This prompts him to attack the commander, believing her indecision and weakness led to the tragedy. He pulls the man away, but Dan insists he was right to finish off Carrie and threatens to tell everything when they reach the colony. The group continues on, but their strength is waning. The doctor explains that the cryosone is to blame, as they have been sleeping for several years without exercising their muscles. Scott again suggests trying a local fruit, but the captain orders it thrown away, and then the radio starts working. The signal is coming from a nearby source. The crew rushes in that direction and finds the mummified bodies of the dead Chinese astronauts from the first mission. But if the transponders are still working, why weren't they found sooner? The captain insists on continuing, but Eileen wants to bury the heroes. John volunteers to help her, and unexpectedly, Dan stays with them. He tries to convince John to help him take command, as the captain is inexperienced and makes mistakes. The captain is discussing this issue with the pilot and promises to protect her. Suddenly, the doctor notices that Scott is acting strangely, and he soon gives in. People rush to him, and it turns out that he did eat the fruit after all. The doctor tries to bring the man back to his senses, but John explains to Eileen that Dan was sent on the mission because of the decision of the artificial intelligence that now controls everything on Earth. And the wrecked ship awakens those most important for salvation: doctors, technicians, and allies. Dan was a soldier. While Scott is dying, the doctor pays for him, but when the man begins to revive, Dan shoots him in the head, after which he again calls for the commander to be removed. But they advise him to remain silent, especially since John has constructed a transmitter and is trying to send a signal. The group moves on. John admits that the battery will only last for one communication attempt. They need to decide whether to wait here or take a risk, or they could climb the mountain and increase their chances. Suddenly, the doctor refuses to continue. She's exhausted. The commander calls a halt, especially since the pilot also refuses to leave early, believing himself to be responsible for what happened. That night, it turns out the pilot is missing from the fire. The captain blames Dan, but Dan is sure he did nothing. However, the doctor shows Dan's ID card, which he found. The second one reveals that he had the same blood type as Carrie and simply didn't want to save the woman. The people demand he hand over his gun. Dan shows it and leaves. In the morning, the survivors continue on and encounter Dan, who orders them to follow him. John refuses. A fight ensues, and a gunshot is heard. Dan knocks John unconscious and prepares to kill the captain, but is himself killed by the pilot, who has fallen. Then John discovers that Eileen has been killed by Dan's stray shot. The survivors reach the supposed base, but it's gone, and Epsilon Iridon hangs overhead. In the post-credits sequence, the captain is led down a prison corridor, and a black mark from an alien parasite's bite is visible on her neck. Honestly, if you watch the trailer for this film, it exaggerates its value so much that it's simply beyond words. It's a low-budget film with a vague ending. Therefore, I definitely don't recommend watching it in its entirety. Support the channel with your subscription. It's easy for you, it's nice for us, and the title of the film will be in the description of this video.